We're going to call the Senate Finance Committee to order. It's Monday, December 7th. And we have just a few little things on our agenda, and that's the state budget. So with us, we have an overview from Commissioner Jim Showalter, our state economist, Dr. Laura Columbakita, and our state budget director, Britta Rattan. So with that, I would like to first turn it over to Eric Nauman. There's a little adjustment to the forecast. And I would like to thank everybody for showing up today. I think this is a very important Senate committee to figure out how we're going. It's a little different beast this year too. So again, thank you for your time, everyone. And with that, Eric Nauman, I'm going to turn it over to you. And welcome, Tom Botter, and I see you too. Thank you for showing up.
So, Madam Chair and members, it's good to see all of you, if only at a distance. I think the chair was hoping that I would maybe speak about a couple of things and do it very quickly so that we can get to the Commissioner, Dr. Koumoulikitis, and the State Budget Director. On the day of the forecast, M&B discovered that there was $5 million of spending in fiscal year 21 that had not been picked up in the budget forecast. I presume M&B will talk about that. However, that does, they issued a revision a couple of days later, and that additional spending takes the budgetary balance in fiscal year 2021 to 635 as opposed to the 640 that members may have been accustomed to thinking about on that first day the forecast was announced. I also wanted to take a moment to remind members the difference between the structural balance and the budgetary balance. The budgetary balance is what, of course, members often refer to as the quote bottom line. However, that number includes carry forward from each successive biennium. So if members, for example, were in a session between now and January to spend some of the 635 in fiscal year 21, that would reduce the budgetary balance to a lower number depending on what is spent in fiscal years 22 and 23, as well as 24 and 25. It has a cascading effect of rolling dollars through from biennium to biennium. The structural balance number measures the difference between the revenue raised in that current biennium subtracted from any spending that would occur in that biennium, and is a measure of ongoing stability of the fund itself. So I think these numbers often get conflated in discussion points, and it's worth keeping in mind that the bottom line, the budgetary balance, is the one that has the cascading carry forward from biennium to biennium. And I think that's what, Madam Chair, you asked me to talk through.
Thank you, Mr. Nauman. Could you tell us why the surplus is down to 635 million? It was did you mention the 21st Century Fund?
I didn't mention that specifically. There was $5 million of expenditure associated with a provision that was enacted, I think, in the 5th special session that required that, that the 21st Century Minerals Fund be paid back in increments of about $5 million whenever there's a surplus. And this item was caught by M&B shortly after the forecast being announced, and they have issued a revision. So when members may have $640 million surplus or positive balance stuck in their brain, it's now 635, and I'm sure the Commissioner and the Budget Director will discuss this.
Thank you, Mr. Nauman. And with that, I would like to welcome Commissioner Jim Showalter. This is your first time in front of our committee, Mr. Commissioner. So very excited to hear from you and work with you this coming session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to be here as well. Greetings to all the members. I appreciate the chance to testify before you today. For the record, my name is Jim Showalter, Commissioner of Minnesota Management and Budget, and with me is Laura Columbakita, Dr. Laura Columbakita, our state economist, Britta Rattan, our state budget director, and working the slide deck is Laura Lane. She is also new to the MMB team, came to us from DHS, and I'm sure you'll get a chance to see a lot of her in the coming days and weeks. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is give you an overview of the budget and economic forecast, really the November information, including our U.S. economic data from our consultants IHS Markit, and really tie together and hopefully answer some of the questions that you might have. Last February, Dr. Kalambakidis mentioned that one of the risks of the February 2020 forecast was the, quote, prolonged and widespread virus outbreak, end quote. That was obviously referring to COVID-19. And at that time, Minnesota's economy was in good shape. We had a projected surplus of more than $1.5 billion for the current biennium, and we had low unemployment. By May, as you know, MIB took an unprecedented action and released an interim budget projection to give policymakers, yourselves, updated budget information as you plan for the end of the 2020 legislative session. Due to the volatile economic conditions, we had at that time projected a $2.4 billion deficit for the current biennium, nearly $4 billion change from the February forecast. So obviously from last week, you know we have some good news to share with you today. The forecast is significantly improved even as the COVID-19 impacts remain. Due to improved economic conditions, the projected deficit anticipated last May has been eliminated, and we now project a more than $600 million surplus for the current fiscal period. I want to be clear that this does not use any of the budget reserve. For the next two-year budget, we project a shortfall, but it's of $1.3 billion, in which, while still a challenge, is a significant improvement from the $5 billion projected shortfall announced in May. I want to recognize that behind this rosier picture, some of you are asking, oh, how much do you know now? How much has changed? Really, can we be any more confident in this than we were in our May figures? And the answer is a multi-piece. You're going to get a lot of them in this presentation. You're going to hear that we still have revenue issues, especially where we compared to where we were last February. This forecast is improved, but really only puts back about half the revenues that were reduced in the May budget update. The other material impact that's going on here is that today's forecast includes a reduction in anticipated spending. Not anticipated, not what you would normally think about in a recession. And Budget Director Raytan will touch on that in her presentation. Bottom line is we've learned a lot about how this pandemic and this recession is both deeper than the recession that we saw in 2009, and yet it hasn't affected the state's budget in the same way. We do know that the pandemic has affected all Minnesotans, and it has brought really a run of discouraging news and events. That is especially so for low-wage workers where the economic impact has been especially concentrated. We still have challenges ahead, but this budget and the state revenue forecast brings a lot more good news to the state. So let's go on to slide 3. I'll take you through the top level finance information, where we're at with the budget in the next couple of slides, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Kalambakidis to talk about the economy, revenues, and give you an idea of how we got to those conclusions. On this slide, you see the financial picture for the current biennium ending June 2021. As mentioned before, we see a swing of nearly $3 billion since May. This includes the result of $1.9 billion in projected revenue and $1.1 billion less in projected spending. This change is really quite significant. It's much larger than you would expect this close to the end of the biennium. And it's also important because, as this group knows, with only 7 months left in the fiscal year, the state has fewer and fewer options to balance the budget. Based on these estimates, the biennium's budget can be balanced without using any of the rainy day funds. The $636 million is, again, the adjusted figure, as Eric suggested just a minute ago, that includes the impact of the $5 million transfer to the 21st Century Fund. Going on to the next slide, you'll see that this improvement isn't temporary. Sometimes forecasts have different stories depending on what year you're talking about. Not so here. that the improvement in 2021, the current biennium, carries over and is still there in the next budget biennium. The first column again shows a projected more than $600 million surplus. And the second column shows the impact on the estimates for the planning years in fiscals 22 and 23. That column is really the foundation that that Governor Walz, the legislature, all of us will be working together to build the budget proposal for enactment later this year. In our estimates, we anticipate spending to be more than $1.3 billion in excess of what we expect to collect in revenues. This means that while the budget situation is improved, we still see a shortfall in the current, or the upcoming biennium rather. Finally, $491 million shown in this chart is not a forecast change. You'll see there on a change in reserves, a decrease in $491 million. This is a transfer out of the budget reserve to the general fund as a result of end of session negotiations, and it was enacted in the end of 2019. So that's kind of the overall picture. Significant improvement. We still have budget challenges ahead. Certainly still learning about the impacts of COVID-19 on the impacts on our residents, our citizens, as well as the state economy and the state budget. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kolombakidis to walk through the revenue and tax and economy picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And we probably will have some questions for you later. Welcome, Dr. Kolombakidis. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Senator?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Senator Rosen, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Laura Kolombakidis, Minnesota State economist. I'm going to start with a high-level overview of the revenue forecast change. I don't usually do this, but just to fix ideas before we move into the economy. And then I will return to the economic outlook and the details of the revenue outlook. The extraordinary volatility and uncertainty in the economy since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic has led directly to changes in our economic and revenue forecasts. So in the chart you have in front of you, the height of the bars shows each of the three revenue forecasts for the current biennium, FY20 and 21, that we've made this year. In May, as you know, we released our interim budget projection as the pandemic was taking hold, as economic activity was being restricted to slow disease spread, and as the US economy was contracting after a record-long 10-year expansion. At that point, back when we released our budget projection in May, we were using the April outlook by IHS. At that point, IHS was forecasting real GDP to decline 5.4% this year. Record numbers of Minnesotans were filing unemployment claims, and the state unemployment rate was spiking at 2 percentage points above the peak in the previous recession. As shown in the second bar chart, in that May projection, we reduced the revenue forecast for the current biennium by $3.7 billion. Economic conditions have improved since May, as some restrictions on activity have been lifted and federal payments have supported businesses, consumers, and governments. Consequently, as you heard from the commissioner, we're now adding back $1.9 billion to the forecast, or about half of what we took out in May. So that's illustrated in the third bar on the chart. I'll now move to the economic outlook. In this chart, the height of the bars shows annual US real GDP growth. The dark bars show the history and the November forecast by IHS. The gray bars show IHS's April forecast, the one that informed our May projection. In the history, you can see the economic contraction or decline in real GDP that occurred during the last recession, when GDP fell 0.1% in 2008 and 2.5% in 2009. And then the 10 years of growth that followed. Now, if you focus on the right-hand side of the chart, you can see forecast change. IHS now expects real GDP to decline 3.6% this year, compared to the 5.4% decline they expected in May. This improvement is due to higher consumer spending and business investment that actually occurred this year, so higher economic activity that occurred this year than had been forecast in the spring. Annual growth is expected to return in 21 next year at a rate of 3.1% and continue through the remainder of our forecast period. Both forecasts, so both the April and the November forecast, show a decline this year followed by a large acceleration next year. The magnitude of the acceleration in 21 is smaller in the November forecast because of the smaller decline in 2020. So we have a smaller contraction in 2020. That means you don't need as high a percentage increase to get back to the levels you're aiming for. Real GDP is expected to grow an average of 2.7% annually through 25. So in addition to having growth, positive growth return next year, IHS expects real GDP to regain its pre-pandemic peak in 22 and to return to full employment in 24. The economic recovery is expected to be uneven. It already is uneven, with GDP associated with production of goods having already achieved pre-pandemic levels. And the service sector is not expected to fully recover until a significant portion of the population is vaccinated against COVID-19. The US outlook remains volatile and uncertain and depends critically on the path of the pandemic. In this forecast, IHS assumes that the rate of infections, hospitalizations, and deaths remain elevated until a vaccine is widely available, which they assume will be in the middle of next year. At that time, they expect the economy then, when people are vaccinated and restrictions can be lifted, they expect the economy to transition from recovery to expansion. Particularly, that expansion moves into the sectors hardest hit by social distancing and safety concerns, such as consumer spending on entertainment and travel. In this outlook, IHS also assumes no further federal fiscal stimulus beyond the measures already enacted. Additional federal support or a more rapid vaccination timeline, either of those would cause the economy to grow faster than shown in the November outlook. Now we'll move to Minnesota's economy. In this chart, the line shows the last 11 years of Minnesota total employment. So the level of employment rather than the change in employment. During the economic expansion, that record 10-year US expansion from July 2009 to February of this year, Minnesota experienced steady employment growth, that's that upward slope to that employment line, adding 337 jobs in total over that period. In February, employment had reached about 3 million. Then the pandemic hit, restrictions were put in place, and Minnesota lost 388,000 jobs in March and April. As some restrictions have been lifted, the state regained just over half that number of jobs through October, leaving employment 184,000 below the February level. So that's our pandemic gap in jobs is 184,000. Note at the end of the employment curve, so it takes this sharp downward plunge, and then it jumps back up. And then at the end of the curve, it's beginning to bend or become flatter. That means that the pace of job growth in the state is slowing. We've already reaped the easiest job gains, and so additional job gains are going to be harder to achieve. During the most recent months of job growth, Minnesota's unemployment rate has fallen from the May peak of 9.9% to 4.6%. That's well below the US rate, and it's 9th lowest among states. However, the last 2 months of unemployment rate decline have occurred because of Minnesotans leaving the labor force rather than from unemployed workers finding jobs. Since February, 107,000 Minnesotans have left the labor force. In the next chart, we show annual growth rate in total Minnesota wage and salary income. So the variable we're measuring here is the sum of all the payrolls of all the employers of the state of Minnesota, and the height of the bar in each case shows the annual rate of growth in that value. The dark bars show the history, and the striped bars show our new projection or our new forecast. Again, you can see the decline in total wage and salary income that occurred in the previous recession, 4.8% in 2009. We're now forecasting a decline of 1.4% this year and moderate growth averaging 4.8% annually thereafter. So the question becomes, how can we have this relatively small decline in wage income this year, 1.4%, when our unemployment rate peaked at such a high level? The reason is that unemployment during this economic downturn has disproportionately impacted lower wage workers. We know that a larger share of unemployment insurance benefit claimants in Minnesota were from lower wage occupations. And there's evidence from US data that the duration of unemployment, so how long someone stays unemployed, that's been longer for those lower wage workers too than for higher wage workers that have been unemployed this year. This characteristic of the labor market right now has led us to forecast a smaller decline in Minnesota total wage income than we projected in May. So that 1.4% decline we expect this year, that's an improvement over the forecast we did in May. And that change, the improvement in the wage forecast, has increased our income and sales tax forecasts. Another unexpected or unanticipated phenomenon in this downturn has been a shift in consumer spending patterns, and we show that on the next chart. First, let me reiterate that consumer spending in general this year has been higher than forecast. So that's one of the reasons that IHS has improved their outlook for 2020 GDP this year, is because consumer spending has been higher than expected. Second, consumers have shifted away from spending on some kinds of services, so on entertainment, on travel, on personal services, those things that are most affected by social distancing. Instead, consumers are purchasing taxable goods. The chart shows the level of US consumer spending on durable goods. This includes, so durable goods are things like furniture and electronics and athletic equipment. The dark dashed line shows the February forecast for this kind of spending, and the light dashed line shows the April forecast, the one that we informed our May projection. And the solid dark line shows the November forecast. You can see from that dark line that consumer spending on these kinds of goods, which not incidentally are generally taxable in Minnesota, has not only outperformed expectations from April and didn't fall in the spring, but instead has increased and exceeded the February forecast. And that shift has supported higher than expected sales tax revenue so far this year and has led us to increase our sales tax forecast. So this chart just shows a piece of the sales tax base. There are other components of the sales tax base that did indeed fall quite a bit in the spring. But many of them have outperformed the expectations from the April outlook. In addition, looking at the pandemic period so far this year, the May through September period in particular, sales tax receipts during that period are lower this year than they were during the same period last year. It's just that they have exceeded the projection that we made in the spring. So let me turn to the new revenue forecast. The first two columns of the table show the current forecast and the forecast change for the current biennium, 20 and 21. And the next two columns show the same for the next biennium. The revenue forecast for 21 reflects the 4-week pause on in-person dining, sports, and fitness establishments that Governor Walz enacted beginning on November 21st and continuing through December 18th. So we made adjustments to the revenue forecast to account for that. Total general fund revenues for the current biennium are now forecast to be $1.9 billion, as you've heard and you saw in that bar chart, $1.9 billion more than the May 2020 projection. The estimates for all major tax types are higher, have been increased. And note that importantly for the beginning point of this forecast, that so far in fiscal year 21, actual revenue collections are $805 million higher than we projected in May, reflecting that improved economic forecast that I've been talking about. Individual income tax receipts are now forecast to be $500 million more than the May projection. That increase is primarily due to that projected improvement in the wage and salary income forecast that I told you about. Sales tax revenue is now forecast to be $808 million more than the prior projection. So that's consistent with the shift in spending that I talked about, and it's also due to the higher collections so far this fiscal year. So sales tax collections have exceeded our expectation this year. The corporate tax is projected to generate $390 million more than the prior projection, and that's due to a higher forecast corporate profits, but also higher actual receipts so far this fiscal year. And then the story for the next biennium is similar. The forecasts for all major tax types have been increased, and that's due to a higher starting point, a higher base, because the forecasts for the current biennium have increased, and then faster forecast growth in income, consumer spending, and profits. Let me and again, those are higher forecasts than what we had in April or May. Let me reiterate some of the many risks to this forecast in my last slide. I've mentioned that the economic forecast depends critically on the path of the pandemic. It depends on the timing of a vaccine and the pace of lifting restrictions on economic activity. And of course, those things are all intertwined. And then all of those uncertainties amplify economic risks, including when and whether businesses and consumers will feel safe resuming normal activities, when businesses will feel confident enough in the future of the economy to make investments, whether businesses that have been affected by social distancing restrictions will make it through the next year. In addition, new federal fiscal support would improve the economic outlook relative to what we are assuming here. And finally, with 30 months remaining until the end of the biennium, the next biennium, even small changes in assumed growth rates in important revenue sources can have big changes in the outlook for this biennium and the next. I will now turn it over to State Budget Director Britta Rayton.
Thank you, Dr. Columbakidis, and we'll save our questions till afterwards. Welcome, State Budget Director, Ms. Rayton.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Again, my name is Britta Rayton. I'm the State Budget Director at MMB. And with this next slide, we're turning to the expenditure side of the forecast. And the slide is showing the change in the spending projections from the previous projections to the current biennium in 20 and 21 and to the next biennium in 22 and 23. So overall, our projected spending in the current biennium is down by 1.053 billion relative to our prior estimates. And the change is smaller in 22-23 with a $409 million reduction in spending estimates relative to the previous projection. As you can see in the chart, E12 spending estimates are down 118 million in the current biennium when compared to May. And the biggest driver of this change is reduced student counts relative to the previous projections. We were already seeing lower student counts in our FY20 data relative to the February forecast, but there was even a greater decline from the previous estimates in the current school year, so FY21, as families were making different choices given the pandemic. Where we see this the most pronounced way is in the kindergarten numbers. So the kindergarten enrollment is down, assuming it's due to a delay in enrolling kindergartners. As well as there is some decline in other grades, which could be attributed to folks opting for private schools or to homeschool their students. In total, the student count in this forecast decreased by approximately 12,600 students relative to our prior projections for the current school year. This results in a 0.6% decrease in our E12 expenditures for the biennium. And while MDE is projecting a year-over-year increase in the pupils, spending remains lower in 22-23 than we had in prior projections for that biennium. And this slide also shows a decrease relative to the prior forecast in the Health and Human Services spending projections. The HHS expenditure forecast is down 919 million in 20 and 21 and 250 million in 22-23 when compared to our prior estimates. And if we turn to the next slide, this slide breaks down some more detail about that change. The slide shows the components of change in this forecast, and the blue bar on the left shows our projection as of end of session forecast updated for special session actions that have happened since then. And then the blue bar on the right shows the November forecast with the steps down showing the significant components of change in this forecast. So the first significant component of change in this forecast is that we are assuming that the federal COVID emergency declaration continues through the first 2 quarters of calendar year 21 or until June of 2021. And assuming an extension of the federal public health emergency means that we have the assumption that the state will continue to receive increased federal support for the medical assistance program. The federal match is increased by 6.2% during the emergency period. And this increase lowers the state share of medical assistance by $310 million in the first 2 quarters of calendar year 21, after we factor in the cost of compliance and other executive orders under the state peacetime emergency in order to generate those federal dollars. In order to earn the enhanced federal match, the state must have continuous coverage for enrollees in MA unless folks are leaving for permitted reasons. And our previous projection had already recognized the increase of FMAP, or the federal Medicaid assistance, through the calendar year 20. So we had already assumed this increased FMAP rate through calendar year 20. This expands it for 6 more months. The federal continuous coverage requirement also contributes to another change in the forecast, a $175 million reduction to the previous estimates for calendar year 20. In May, we first estimated the cost of continuous coverage, and at that time, there was limited data or experience to inform how enrollment in medical assistance would be affected by that federal requirement. We assumed at the time that all individuals on medical assistance at the start of the pandemic would remain on the program for the duration of the emergency. Now that we have 6 months of data and experience during the pandemic, and we understand the enrollment for MA basic care, we're seeing that it's 5.5% lower than previously anticipated. So there are people exiting medical assistance for allowable reasons. And so we've updated the estimates of that continuous coverage requirement accordingly. And then the third significant component of change is lower utilization of services during the COVID pandemic, which was not incorporated into our May interim budget projection. This change is estimated to be $293 million compared to previous estimates. And the largest piece of that, $217 million of that reduction, is in medical assistance, particularly in the fee-for-service program, due to individuals deferring or forgoing medical services during the pandemic. And this forecast does assume a slow return to pre-COVID utilization levels towards the end of the next biennium. There's also additional lower utilization outside of medical assistance in programs such as childcare assistance, as well as substance use disorder treatment. Moving to the next slide. On this slide, we return to a view of total revenues and expenditures in the general fund. And this slide shows the upcoming 22-23 biennium, as well as provides a first look at the planning estimates for 24 and 25. So this is the first time we're displaying those 24-25 numbers. And the slide is showing the structural balance in the next 2 biennia, which means we're just comparing revenues to expenditures in each biennium without including carry forward and also without recognizing changes in reserve levels. As you can see, we don't have structural balance in either biennia, meaning that the forecast spending in each biennium exceeds the forecast revenues. The structural gap in 22-23 that we're showing on this slide totals $1.616 billion. You'll probably notice that this number is higher. There's a larger gap on this slide than on the slide that Commissioner Showalter presented a bit earlier. And that's because this slide does not recognize the contribution of the reserve, because this is just looking at the expenditures in 22-23 to the spending in to the revenues that are received in 22-23. So it's not recognizing the use of the $491 million in the reserve. There's also a structural gap in FY24 and 25 of $552 million. And the size of the structural gap does narrow from 22-23 into 24 and 25. And this is because the revenue estimates are growing faster than the expenditure estimates. And you can see that displayed in the biennial growth section of this chart. And then finally, we do include an estimate of inflation on this slide for the next 2 biennia. And this is to give a sense of the cost pressures that exist into the next 2 biennia and into the next biennia and into the planning years. Inflation is generally not included in our expenditure estimates for the forecast, except in a limited number of programs where there's an inflationary component in the formula or where the formula is based on actual costs. And so this estimate of $1.3 billion in 22-23 and $2.9 billion in 24 and 25 is an estimate of inflation applied only to those expenditures that don't already include a measure of inflation into their formula. And with that, I can pass it back to Commissioner Showalter.
Thank you, Budget Director. Thank you very much. I don't see any hands up, but I do have a couple questions, and maybe that'll spur a little more conversation here about this. Commissioner Showalter, why was the May budget projection so off? And what would you do different next time? I think this is an unusual year with the pandemic, and so we asked for the May budget projection, and it really was off. What would you do different?
Good question. Madam Chair, members, questions, what would we do differently? Certainly, I think there's a couple of lessons learned in here. One is quite simply, it is difficult to understand in the midst of an event all the implications of that event. As the slides that Dr. Kolombakidis showed, we actually were right that the GDP impact of the COVID-19 pandemic was going to be worse than the housing-related finance crash of 2009. It wasn't as bad as projected, but it was still worse than what the GDP dial back was in 2009. What we didn't understand was the impact was going to be so concentrated on particularly on lower income, lower wage workers who pay in less in the tax structure, and in a progressive tax structure end up impacting the overall budget less. In addition, you would normally expect to have more costs for the state because of additional needs, whether in healthcare, economic assistance, other potential spending. Instead, the opposite happened because hospitals were closed, clinics were closed, you couldn't see your dentist. So two completely unexpected things combined to lead us to where we're at. I think it was still smart to put together interim information at that point in time to guide everyone's expectations. Perhaps we all overestimated how much we could know just 2 months or so into the pandemic. And with the convenience of not being there and another 6 months in the rearview mirror, it's easy to see that now. At the time, I know legislators, myself, all were like, well, MMB's got to do something to temper that February forecast, which was looking a lot better than, in fact, what we're projecting now. We are not projecting a forecast nearly as good as was on the table back in February. So that's a long way of saying, Madam Chair, we keep learning. We keep figuring out what we know and what we don't know. And I think that conversation back and forth between the legislature and the executive branch has been really productive. And hopefully this presentation takes us another step forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. One more question, and I'll turn it over to the members. Your 5% reduction in some agencies, minus, I believe it was EPS, corrections, NHA, and DHS this fall, yielded about 18 million. Is that reflected in the savings in your forecaster?
Madam Chair, no, it's not. Those were basically, I'm thinking about the salary savings, the set aside of that. I'm looking at the budget director because I'm about to I'm starting to wonder. So the look on her face, I'm going to turn it over to her.
It's fine. Thank you, Commissioner. And Madam Chair, those savings are not reflected. We did do a holdback in the accounting system. So we are holding those funds back. But because we are not at a time when the governor can actually access unallotment authority in the general fund, because we would need to have a deficit in order to access that unallotment authority, we are holding those until they would cancel at the end of the biennium, or they could be canceled through legislative and executive action during a legislative session.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Kiffmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly interesting information here, and especially the 24-25 and looking that our revenues at this point are increasing at 3.6%, spending at 2.4%. If we continue with that, I think that is going to be the strongest stability going forward in the Minnesota budget, is to keep that kind of balance going forward. My question for you is, considering the fact that the vaccine is coming out, we're anticipating it maybe by the end of December here for our senior citizen and nursing homes first. So the question I have for you is, does this forecast assume the vaccine is ready and circulated by a certain time? And what impact, if you have not included, or if you would include it, in other words, basically, what do vaccines do to this current forecast that you have, and what might be different considering the timeline of vaccines?
I'll start, but I'll turn it over to Dr. Kolombakidis because, really, I think some of the information you get from the Department of Health on a daily basis about the epidemiological reports, the potential for vaccines to be available in Minnesota later this month. Remember that we're talking tens of thousands as opposed to the millions of people who live in Minnesota. And so the question is, what's the sweep? How quickly does that sort of lead into change in Minnesota and the economy? And while we don't have specific input from the Department of Health, we do have some assumptions from our national economists and their reliance on sort of the national picture. Dr. Kolombakidis?
Sure. Madam Chair, Senator, the U.S. forecast that we used assumes that a vaccine is widely available in the middle of next year, and they acknowledge that their forecast depends critically on the path of the pandemic and on the timing of the vaccine. But their assumption is that it's widely available in the middle of next year, and that widely enough available that economic restrictions can be lifted and the economy can take off. So another way of saying that is that they don't really assume the economy will take off, or at least not the service part of the economy, until the middle of next year. They do allow in their forecast for the possibility of limited availability of the vaccine this winter for whoever's first in line for getting it. So and any acceleration beyond that assumption. So for instance, if this winter we moved faster into the general population, this winter and spring, we moved faster into the general population out of that first round of people into the general population, that might cause the economy to grow faster. So generally an acceleration of the vaccine timeline would cause the U.S. economy to grow faster in 21 next year. And the converse is also true. So if we find out that the vaccines are ineffective or that we can't deploy them according to the current timeline, then that would slow down the economy as well.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up and say, so what I hear you saying, Dr. Kolombakidis and Commissioner, is that no, it has not been factored into this Minnesota forecast of today.
Dr. Kolombakidis.
Madam Chair, yes, it has.
Yeah. It has.
The assumption that I talked about the vaccine being available on a limited basis to whoever gets it first this winter, and then it's not available to the rest of us, to the general public, until next summer, that is baked into our forecast.
Okay, thank you.
And Senator Kiffmeyer just texted me that my voice was really soft, and that's because my 16-year-old dog is right here and I can't move my chair. I will lean into my computer. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner and directors, thank you for the presentation. I just had a comment and then just a couple quick questions. One kind of goes back to the discussion with Senator Rosen's comments about that May forecast, something that was so unusual, something we haven't done before, but we were living in unusual times. And so I would have liked to have seen, if it's not too difficult, it would have been helpful in some of those slides where we did those comparisons, like slides 3, 10, 12, for example, to actually see what the February forecast was. So we could see the normal comparisons that we would make, which would be from February to November. And we're really kind of missing that. At least I missed that in that presentation today, because the presentation that we got today and that we got earlier as finance chairs was just comparing it to that May forecast. And would it be too much trouble to get some of those comparisons from the February or from the November forecast to the February forecast like we usually do?
Commissioner Showalter.
Madam Chairman, Senator, of course. I do want to note that, like in the slide deck itself, one of the graphs and one of those comparisons is already in there. Looking at the sales tax information, again, one of those unexpected turns was the February, the May, and the November anticipated sales tax revenues, where actually the November sales tax projection is actually higher than the February. That's reversed than what you would normally expect, but
Yes.
We can certainly show those differences.
Madam Chair? Thank you. And thank you for that. That will just help in the further really analyzing and looking at these numbers and understanding them. And then I just had another question and then a brief comment. On the slide that showed the inflation, in other words, if there were inflation included in these forecasts, I want to know what inflationary measure are you using? Is it the CPI or the implicit price deflator? Which mechanism are you using in measuring that inflationary anticipated cost?
Commissioner Showalter. Or Ms. Rutan.
Madam Chair, Senator, it's a CPI measure of inflation.
Thank you. Thank you. And then my last comment, Madam Chair, just very quickly, just to note in following that enrollment changes in our schools, we did some further analyzing of that number, that there are 12,600 kids who are not currently participating in the Minnesota public schools. And further analysis showed us that about 8,300 of those were COVID related in some way. And I'm still looking at how many of those are delayed kindergartners. So the one thing we do know is we'll probably have a bumper crop of kindergartners in 2021. But I just wanted to mention that. So, and thank you for getting that further information, Commissioner. That's all.
Okay, Senator Nelson. Senator Benson.
All right. Unmute and on video. Thank you. Wanted to check on the federal FMAP. Is it required that we are under emergency powers or just federal emergency powers? And we can do compliance without emergency powers. So I understand the checklist of compliance items. So do we have to be under an emergency powers order? I'm seeing Britta shake her head no.
Madam Chair, Senator, my understanding is we just need to have the compliance measures in place. I can confirm that, but that my understanding to generate the FMAP, we just need to be having the compliance measures.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then on the other portion, the delayed care, you mentioned 217 million in fee for service, but I thought there was also an FMAP give back due to medical loss ratio, or is that not come through yet? I hear the plans talking about it, but I'm not seeing it here on this document.
Madam Chair and members, it's actually 200 million in the fee for service and 17 million of it is the take back for managed care. So 217 is the combination of the two.
Senator Benson.
That was all that doesn't mean I won't have more questions. That was all that was on my list. So thank you.
On that question with the FMAP that you were bringing up, Senator Benson, I'm wondering with it for MMB, does that your February projections will be good for the FMAT. You're not going to be coming back in at a later date and asking for revised projections. Is that correct? You're gonna-
I'll start. Madam Chair, you're asking whether we would revise our projections for FMAP? We obviously could if the federal health emergency was ceased, if Minnesota stopped taking action, we would have to change then the assumption on FMAP. So that is an ongoing, I think, estimate. We basically adopted sort of the same period that the CBO is assuming on national figures. So it is subject to update potentially in February.
In February, but not later in the spring when we're trying to close the budget. We'll be using the February numbers, I would assume.
Madam Chair, that would be my assumption as well. I think working off the February forecast to end the budget this year would be a great thing for all of us.
And Senator Rosen, I frankly think that Congress is not inclined to pull back any money at this point, given the talk in the news of another COVID package coming forward. I don't think they'd pull back. It'd be a tough vote to take to pull back FMAP, enhanced FMAP from the states. So that one's the least of my concerns right now.
Very good. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I had some FMAP questions, but I think they've been answered. One, if Dr. Kolombakidis is still around, I had one question about the May forecast, which I'm actually glad you did, even though I agree with some of the others that it'd be helpful to have the comparisons more to February as well. But in I think it was chart 6, where you showed the forecast for this year's economic hit and next year's economic growth. When I look at the one from February, according to the chart, it looks like the original projections in May we're going to have a much deeper hit this year, but that we were going to more than make up for it next year, that we would actually be above zero at the end of next year. This one, now it's much better in the meantime, but it also strikes me that the turn down next year is so much less. Is there any, I assume that the original forecast was going to be much worse than it was for now, but was going to end much quicker and make up much more next year. What happened? Why is it the May forecast was actually better over this year and next year in terms of the economic hit?
I'd like to answer that one.
I'll take it.
Dr.
Madam Chair, Senator, so both the current forecast in November and the May forecast show, as you describe, a decline in real GDP for 2020, and then an acceleration or a big increase in increase in GDP growth for 2021. And you're right that both the percentage change down in 20 and the percentage change up in 21 are both larger in May than they are now. But it is still the case that the level of GDP for 21 stays higher in the current forecast than in the May forecast, because thanks. It's this chart, because when you go down by a smaller percentage, you don't need as big a percentage to get back up. IHS incidentally describes this pattern or the shape of this recovery as a bounce and fade, meaning we took a decline, we bounce back up, but then we fade in terms of having lower economic growth going forward. And so that's the reason. And then the shape of the GDP growth chart doesn't necessarily translate directly into our revenue forecast, because there's no direct map between GDP and revenues. There are items that we tax in our revenue system that don't occur in GDP, and vice versa.
Madam Chair, thank you for that. I understand the thing. I guess the only thing when you were talking about the bounce and fade, if you notice that the bounce and fade and the bounce in May was actually greater than the fall. It's bouncing up higher. This bounce now is not quite as high. the forecast you have now seems more traditional, more what you'd expect. But at one point, they were actually expecting it to bounce higher than the fall.
Yeah.
Was there something unusual, or just we didn't know anymore, and the sense was it would come back really hard,
Mhm.
really strong?
Madam Chair, Senator, these are percentage changes. These are not levels of GDP. So it's a minus 5.4% decline this year. In May, they were expecting to this high 6.3% next year. And then the 3.6 to the 3.1, actually, you don't need as big, you don't need the 6.3 to get you back to where you were, because you didn't decline. They didn't decline as much in this year. So through 21, or through most of 21, it looks like GDP, the level of GDP actually does stay higher in November than it was in February.
Senator Marty?
Okay, my point was still that bounce of 5.4 up 6.3 is more bounce up than it was bounce down. Whereas right now, under the current forecast, we're going down 3.6 and only up 3.1 in the first year. Why was that bounce so high? I realize it would be higher than it is under a lower downfall, but it was even higher than the downfall, even the original forecast downfall. Maybe there's no, I mean, I don't know. It's just economic projections, so I don't know. It just strikes me that was awfully high, that it bounced up higher than it fell in the first year.
Madam Chair, it's a function of those, the fact that these are percentage changes. So if you reduce a number by only 3.6%, you don't need you don't need to grow 6.3% off of it's. Here's another way to say it, is that it's off of a higher base, the current forecast, because we didn't go down as much. So you don't need as big a percentage change to get back up. So IHS was forecasting a much deeper contraction, and they expected that when they were also expecting, if I remember correctly, an earlier resolution to the pandemic. And so when restrictions were able to be removed, they expected that bounce to occur. But the primary reason is that the 6.3% growth growth is on a smaller number than the 3.1% growth is in the November forecast.
Senator Marty?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Franzen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So I'm going to try to ask my question, whether it's factored into this new budget projection. The CARES Act funding deadline to use any funds was December 30th or 31st. I can't remember what date it was specifically, but if we don't continue some of the programming and some of the services, like testing, for instance, is one that pops in my mind. After that funding, we don't get any federal funding from this new negotiation that we're expecting the federal government to have another round of CARES funding, or whatever they call it, to take us into the new year. Is that projected in this model in terms of what if we stop testing because our state funding is done, federal money is not coming? That might actually put us backwards in terms of what the vaccine would push us forward if we don't have good testing. Or funding for the testing that we have right now in Minnesota. How would that change our forecast? Because I think that's a big question. If we go backwards on testing because we have no money to do that, if the federal government doesn't fill in that gap or continue to fund that, and we don't fund it at the state level, is that piece? I know that you were talking about the vaccines being factored into the model, and the levels of how many people can get them all the way to summer and beyond. But the testing piece, for instance, comes to mind as something that is just as important, and that we might not have funding for, either if the federal government doesn't renew it or if we don't factor that in.
Who would like to take that one? Commissioner Showalter, you are not on.
I'll start. Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, great question. And it really underscores a earlier slide that Dr. Kalambakidis mentioned about the path of the pandemic, the public response, and all of the variables that the LCRC and everyone have been grappling with, because ultimately we have a lot more to learn and there's a lot of decisions that have to be made yet. So absolutely, if the federal government doesn't step in, is that going to affect the economy? Absolutely. It's not going to, if it did step in, that would absolutely be a positive for the economy. Right now, this forecast does not assume congressional action. A month ago, they did. The national forecasters did. In the economic projection that this forecast is based on, they do not have it in there because at that point it was sufficiently uncertain. So we'll understand that and we'll roll in whatever does happen with congressional action in the February forecast at that point in time. In terms of our pandemic response, obviously, it is imperative that we have the ability to have additional help to respond to the pandemic. Minnesota has used the vast majority of its CARES Act funding already. I am grateful that the legislature stepped in immediately last spring and put money on the table as well to get Minnesota going forward in response to it. And in large part, not in complete, but in large part, those funds really have to have those authorizations decided by December 31. So there's a lot of decisions that are going to be made. The budget director and her team, Amy Jorgensen and her team, have a lot of work to try to figure out all the financing. And if Congress, if the legislature find ways to allow more flexibility, it'll help the pandemic response. Hopefully, it'll help ultimately the economy and the budget as well.
Senator Franzen? Okay.
We're okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Senator Kiffmeyer, and then I have another question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One last thing when you were talking about, and I certainly understand the variety of input that can affect these budget forecasts. I know that's a challenge. But one of them that made me think of is that recently the construction of Line 3 pipeline has had final approval. And I know that's a significant jobs and economic growth, especially in northern Minnesota. So has that been, I think it's probably answers no, because it's probably been too recent. But what might that do if that is included in your future forecast?
Budget Director?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Senator, we tend not to put an explicit measure for big construction projects. Like we have done it for the stadiums, for instance, until absolutely all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and we know that the project is going forward. And so we'll evaluate that for the February forecast for that particular project.
Senator Kiffmeyer?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding is that indeed is the case, that at least if the Star Tribune is correct in what they've reported and others as well, that all of those I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed. And that's the reason why I asked that question. So if you'd like to get back to us on that, that would be just fine too. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kiffmeyer. I do have a question, and Commissioner Showalter, I told you there wasn't going to be any strange questions, but this one does come off of the, it's page 8 of the budget forecast, not the summary, but it talks about the Blue Ribbon Commission and that if those are not implemented, the strategies implemented in this upcoming session, it looks like in 22-23, excuse me, there will be 100 million taken out of the budget reserve. Can you give us just an update on that commission? And then I do have a question about the budget reserve after that.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members, great question, because the forecast that you have in front of you and the numbers that you have in front of you are as a current law forecast. We do our best to express what we anticipate happening in the future based upon current statute. The Blue Ribbon Commission is one of those examples. In current law, $100 million was assumed to be savings that will be enacted on healthcare based upon the recommendations of this commission that's been working over the past year. It was backed up with an explicit kind of make good of our transfer from the reserves into the fund, into the general fund, if those recommendations don't get enacted, aren't good enough, and don't get put into place. So based upon this forecast, we're still assuming that there will be budget initiatives that will yield that $100 million in savings. So the reserve figure that you see right now hasn't been triggered to make good on those savings. You'll obviously see recommendations one way or another in the governor's recommendation due later in January. And I'm grateful for the work of the commission members, because at the end of the day, these are difficult conversations. There's a lot of different ideas that are in that BRC recommendation, and I'm sure we'll be debating those and looking at those further in session.
So the BRC has been able to continue working with COVID, and was it kind of a hitch for them, and are they behind, or are they on target for these recommendations?
Madam Chair, members, I am sure the BRC would prefer to have not met during a pandemic and had more bandwidth to work through it, but I think certainly they've given us a number of ideas, and am grateful for their work.
Thank you, Commissioner. And my other question is about the budget reserve and the health of the budget reserve. Currently, it's 2.377 billion. And then after the 491 is taken out at the end of June, it'll be 1.886. Where does that put us in our requirements, our wish list, our parameters for the budget reserve? And does that need to be looked at? Are you comfortable with that? And how much higher can we go on that budget reserve? Just give us a general overview and your comfort level with the 1.886.
Madam Chair, members, a great question. As the MMB commissioner, my answer is constitutionally more is better, simply because it allows for opportunity to get time to smooth out economic disruption, and that is always kind of the conservative position. That said, we're balancing a lot right now. I think that is so much better than the position we were in 10 years ago. When we were facing in the middle of a recession, we had budget deficits, and we were sitting on a cash flow account of $350 million. And literally we were checking to see if we had cash to make payments next week. So, $1.8 billion is a darn good place to start from. I think the key thing right now is prioritization, getting through the COVID pandemic, getting the economy back going, and then building up the reserve. I'm not looking to build up the reserve at this point, no way. I think the question is, do we have enough to manage the economic recession, to the pandemic, and make sure that we've got enough that, obviously, we're going to be learning more. We still have risk out there. I think we're in a good place right now.
And so the bonds were sold in August with this, fully knowing that 491 is being taken out. Did they give you recommendations where they would like to see the reserve? Is there a formula that they work with you on, or is that strictly, and I kind of forget how that works. If we have Eric Nauman has told me this 6 times, unfortunately, he'll have to tell me a 10th time again. But is there, did that penalize us, number one, in August for that 491 coming out? Number two, is there a formula or a number that they want us to hit?
I'll start with that, Madam Chair, members. I'll start, but I would invite the budget director and state economist to add in, because they were part of the team that makes the presentation to the rating agencies that we do on a regular basis to help them understand what's going on in Minnesota. Bottom line is, there's not a magic formula. They do have formulas that they'll push us through, but it's not a singular formula. They have a number of different ratios, a number of different points of view to see how Minnesota stacks up against other states in terms of our economic performance, in terms of our state management of the budget, in terms of our reserve ratios, our debt portfolio. All of these things are things that they're looking at. I can tell you from a nationwide perspective that Moody's and the other rating agencies are more negative on states than they were in prior years, in my previous experience. that because of the effects of the pandemic, because of the recession and its devastating impact on a number of states, particularly those that aren't particularly well managed, that they are pretty negative about the rating outlooks for other states. I think right now, Minnesota, it keeps on looking a little bit better and better, but I'll add into my colleagues, offer my colleagues a chance to answer.
I can jump in. Senator and members, I just want to flag there is a formula. It's based on the volatility of our revenue streams, and Dr. Kolumbakidis' team does an analysis that lands at a percentage. And so, Dr. Kolumbakidis, you can jump in and correct me, but I think we're at around 4.95% of our biennial revenues is our target for the budget reserve. And so our budget reserve is currently at that target level. When we reduce it by 491, it will be below the target. But we do have that automatic mechanism anytime we have a surplus where we are putting money back into the reserve until we get to the target. And so that's one thing that the rating agencies really appreciate about Minnesota's policy, is that it is that automatic mechanism to replenish the reserve.
So that will, if we have a positive, which we're hoping in February, that will be triggered.
So Madam Chair, it won't be triggered until we've actually taken the 491 out. It's the reason it wasn't triggered this time is because our budget reserve currently is at the target. So there was none added with the November forecast. If we take the 491 out at the beginning of the next biennium, so we take it out at the beginning of 2021, and then we have a surplus, then we would put more back in.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And how confident are you? Normally the November forecast is a little more conservative. I just want an opinion from all three of you about the February forecast. Did we do a benchmark? Oh, you can't do that. That's illegal. That's right. I forget. Should we be bracing ourselves?
Madam Chair, I can't forecast the February forecast quite yet. I do think that Minnesota has put itself in good position. And I think, there's a lot of big decisions that still are to be made about, congressional action is going to be really important, whether we're finding ways to help the hundreds of thousands of people who are going to be affected by unemployment insurance termination. There's a lot of big issues. And I think depending on that, Dr. Kolumbakidis and the Budget Director Ratan will have a lot more information to put together an update. We try to be as up the middle as we can.
Perfect. I have one more question. Senator Kiffmeyer, did you not lower your hand?
Well, yeah, Senator Rosen, I just had a quick question in regards to the $100 million on the Blue Ribbon Commission on the Human Services. And that when I read that report, the range was of savings from 1 million to 9.99 million or something. And so how are you going to choose a number when you have a range of 1 million to 9 million in several areas? It kind of adds up to maybe anywhere from 10 million to 99 million. And so how are you going to actually calculate that amount of savings or amount that might come out of the reserve?
Who would like to answer that? Commissioner
I'll
Schultz.
start, but the budget director is here. And my first answer is I would look to my budget director for help.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, members, I think what you're talking about is the places where there's kind of a range of options and a range of potential impacts. We will be working to make sure that any proposals that are proposed from the BRC have a specific dollar amount assigned to them as they're put forward in the governor's budget, but also during the legislative process, we'll be working with the LBO. We've already had those conversations with the LBO about the fact that this BRC situation is a little different because We'll be fiscal noting those provisions as always, but we can't actually then count them on a spreadsheet because they'll be counting towards that target. It'll be kind of a side spreadsheet about how many proposals are there from that are BRC labeled proposals and working towards that 100 million.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Cohen.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So this is the last time I get to play a historian ever, at least with this committee. And these conversations are always very useful because I thought the budget forecast was a direct connection between Commissioner Showalter coming back in, that there was some relationship there, but this is suggesting that that's not the case. So more seriously, the question relative to the percent used, members should remember that that's just a statutory amount. And that was recommended by the Budget Trends Commission. The commission was set up primarily by the Senate back in whatever it was, which now in 2005, I believe. And there's nothing magic about that number. If this next legislature or any other legislature wants to set that figure at a 6%, 7% of general fund, you can do so. The second thing, obviously, is the statutory payback, which was directly a Senate initiative. And I hate to do this, Commissioner Showalter, you'll remember that the administration back then in the House was really not very crazy about the idea. It was totally a Senate initiative, but that too is statutory. So if members believe that there should be some further acceleration to try to have a budget reserve at a higher amount, the legislature can do that. There's nothing constitutional about it. It's all statutory. Obviously, earlier in the year when we had a much worse budget forecast, the assumption was that the reserve was going to be needed to a much greater extent, and that we were very lucky in regard to other states, many other states, where they didn't have reserve as we looked at things back in March, April, May. But members should keep in mind for next year's legislature or whatever, if you want to change the percentage of any of those or the payback, go ahead. And I'm going to guess, and I don't presume to be an expert on the bond houses, but I assume that they would look favorably in Minnesota if we were to accelerate what we've already done with this, and principally what the Senate's done.
Thank you, Senator Cohen.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Showalter.
Madam Chair, Senator, I just want to respond and start by just thanking Senator Cohen because for the years of leadership in finance, I'm personally, and I know our department is institutionally grateful for his contributions and leadership. He's been there all along. I know when we started talking about raising the budget reserve, I knew we had a strong partner and leader to help that discussion, and he's been there all along. So I just want to thank him and call him out for his many contributions to financial management in the state.
Well, Madam Chair, if I could just respond to that very quickly. Thanks, Commissioner. Keep in mind, it wasn't just myself. Obviously, the legislature is a collaborative effort. The actual chief author, it was principally Rod Scoy and myself, but Rod was the chief author. But Commissioner, thanks a lot. And I know we've missed seeing you, and I have a lot of other good historical points that we can talk about privately away from the committee. I'm sure you miss them. So happy to update you.
Madam Chair, Senator, thank you. I look forward to it.
Commissioner Showalter, I call Senator Cohen our sage, wise, not old senator, and we're going to miss him deeply because of these great stories and his wise sage advice. So,
Madam Chair, again, I'm available anytime for the stories. Just call.
Well, I must say you look relaxed and you're having a great time. It looks like.
No, I'm not. I'm working on some interrogatories.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, I do want to thank Senator Cohen and Senator Hayden for their service on the Finance Committee and their service to this great state, and your constituents have been very fortunate to have you guys represent them, and I'm going to miss you terribly. So thank you very much for your service to this Finance Committee. Absolutely. Is there any further questions for MMB and for Dr. Kolumbakidis? Well, thank you very much to all three of you for being on today. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you. We all look forward to working with you. I have no idea what the finance committee is going to look like. We haven't got direction yet, but it should be coming out shortly. And it won't be the same, like I said, without Senator Cohen and Senator Hayden, but we have fine memories, so that's more important. I would like to also thank my committee assistant, Jessica Young. Tomorrow is her last day. So this is her last committee hearing. And this is the second time she's left me. I'm just going to say we worked together. She was my LA way back. And I have so enjoyed working with her this past year. And she was the researcher for finance before that. So Jessica, you're going to be greatly missed. She's going to work with Medical Alley. So they're a lucky fellow. With that, members, we will see you or talk to you hopefully next week with our special session. Jessica, do you have any thoughts that you would like to say before?
No, thank you, Senator. I've really loved this job in particular. It's been great to work with you as chair and this whole committee. So I'll be around. So I'll see you all soon, I hope.
Thank you, Jessica. You did a great job. With that, members, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.